Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a video today to talk about and compare the 3 stud pattern variations for the Nike Hypervenom Phantom. So on the ground in front of me, I have those 3 stud pattern variations. From left to right, I have the Soft Ground Pro stud pattern. In the middle, I have the Firm Ground stud pattern. And then on the right, I have the AG stud pattern for the Phantom model. Now, one of the questions that I get asked pretty much on a daily basis is which stud pattern is going to be best for a wide variety of playing surfaces. And the answer to that question is really none of them. Each of these stud patterns are designed and tested on one single type of playing surface, mainly because you can't really make a shoe for tons of different playing surfaces and tons of different conditions. The last shoe to really go for that concept was the F50 Tunits from Adidas, if you guys can remember that. And that, as a concept, was a really good idea, but in terms of the execution and the performance and the comfort level of the shoe and really the practicality of the shoe wasn't there, which is why that design has gone away and probably will never return again, at least for a very, very long time. The best way to do it and the best way to get the most amount of performance out of your shoes is to buy the right stud pattern for the right type of playing surface. This is not a situation where these companies are trying to scam you into buying multiple pairs of shoes and they're just not putting out a stud pattern for all the playing surfaces because they don't want to. It's really a situation where each of these stud patterns are designed for one type of playing surface and they're tested for performance, they're tested for durability, and of course they're tested for safety. And I think a lot of people kind of disregard that last point there is safety. When you wear a soft ground stud pattern on hard ground or a soft ground stud pattern on artificial grass or even a firm ground stud pattern on artificial grass, you're taking a shoe out of its element, you're taking it in an environment it was not designed to be used on, and for that reason you're not only potentially causing yourself harm by way of injury because, like I said, they're not designed for that type of playing surface, but you're also asking for durability issues, and of course they're not going to perform as well if they're not on the playing surface they were intended to be used on. So if you buy an AG stud pattern, it's really designed for one type of playing surface, and that is artificial grass. Same goes for firm ground, same goes for soft ground. If there's one stud pattern here that I would say is going to be the most versatile, it probably would be the firm ground stud pattern, and that's because you can pretty much use it on any type of natural grass playing surface, whether it be hard, firm, or of course soft. It's really not going to harm the shoe. You may notice a variation in performance depending on the playing conditions, but for the most part you're pretty safe wearing a firm ground stud pattern on any type of natural grass playing surface. But for all the other stud patterns, AG and soft ground, I wouldn't recommend using soft ground on anything but soft ground, and I wouldn't recommend using AG on anything but artificial grass. Now, as far as the differences in performance between all 3 of these shoes, when you're talking about the Hypervenom Phantom, you're getting the same performance out of all 3 stud variations. From the sole plate up, the shoe is exactly the same no matter which stud pattern that you go for. Same materials, same fit, same build quality, same shape, same sizing. Everything is the same about all 3 of these models. So if you're buying a Hypervenom Phantom, you're going to get the feel and performance of a Hypervenom Phantom. The only variation you're going to find from stud pattern to stud pattern is of course going to be the stud pattern itself, as well as a little bit of variation in the sole plate, mainly in the AG model, which we'll talk about in just a second. So starting to talk about the stud patterns more specifically, I guess we'll start with the Soft Ground Pro stud pattern. This is it. It features 6 screw-in metal studs, 4 in the forefoot and 2 in the heel, with your molded plastic studs that are fixed to the sole plate in between those metal studs just to provide that little bit of additional grip. The sole plate base is a glass nylon material, just as it will be found on the firm ground version, and overall this is a great stud pattern for soft natural grass playing surfaces. Generally, soft ground is defined as very wet, very muddy, and just very soft, so you need the extra length of the metal studs. They also include an extra set of longer metal studs if you do buy these brand new. Keep that in mind. And like I said, these metal studs are designed to dig into the very soft ground in order to provide adequate traction under very soft and generally sloppy playing conditions when it comes to the natural grass. Probably the least common of all types of playing surface for general youth soccer, if you will. unless of course you're playing in an area that is very, very wet and it tends to rain on a regular basis, where then soft ground stud patterns may be a little bit more common. But again, not a stud pattern I would recommend for any type of playing surface other than soft ground. Now moving on to the firm ground stud pattern, like I said, this is probably going to be the most common and the most versatile of the bunch. The studs are about average in length for a firm ground stud pattern. You can see that it features pretty much all conical studs apart from your two bladed studs here, one at the toe and then one at the base of the forefoot. Of course, the sole plate base is a glass nylon material, and in all honesty, this is one of my personal favorite stud patterns out right now. It provides some really great multi-directional as well as just outright grip when pushing off in this particular stud pattern. So if you're looking for a good firm ground stud pattern, the Hypervenom Phantom one is definitely a really good option. Now moving on to the AG stud pattern, you're going to notice that there is a bit of variation in the sole plate itself as well as in the stud pattern. Now all of the orange you see going through the base of the forefoot, midfoot, and heel is actually a glass nylon base, just like you're going to find on the firm ground and soft ground pro stud patterns, whereas in the forefoot, where it tends to be like a dull gray color, it is actually just a thick TPU plastic. There's no glass nylon there whatsoever, and that's to allow for added flexibility to the shoe because of the artificial grass playing surfaces, as well as having that little bit of added thickness in the plastic itself to act as a heat shield, because if you are playing on an outdoor artificial grass playing surface in the summertime, you know it gets very, very hot, and they have to have that extra thickness in the sole plate to better disperse the heat and of course allow for better durability in the long run. Now as far as the stud pattern itself goes, this is the AG stud pattern that is specific to the Hypervenom line, and it probably is my personal favorite AG stud pattern around right now. It's really, really good. It features a wide variety of studs that are scattered across pretty much the entire bottom of the sole plate. You have lots of them in the heel. They're not particularly long. They're a little bit shorter than your average firm ground stud pattern, and that's to allow for added stability, and just because you don't need the extra depth in the studs on an artificial grass playing surface, just because they tend to not be all that deep. And of course the studs themselves, you guys may have noticed, are actually hollowed out and feature more of a soft rubber material on the tip, and that's to allow for some flexibility to the stud itself. You guys can see it moves a little bit when I kind of squeeze it together with my fingers, and that's to allow for a break in the grip itself. So you're not going to get that clingy feel, you're not going to be tripping over your feet, and once your foot is planted, you're still going to have that ability to twist and turn, which is also going to be a lot safer than if you were to wear, for example, a firm ground stud pattern, which more or less sticks into the ground once your foot is planted, which is really dangerous and can lead to some really severe injuries to all of the major joints on your leg. Now as far as the stud patterns themselves go, that's pretty much it, guys. That's really the three stud patterns that are available, and like I said, I'd really recommend one stud pattern for one type of playing surface. So if it means buying multiple pairs of shoes, so be it. If you really want to get the best performance out of your footwear as well as the best safety and of course protection, then it's definitely very, very important to get the proper stud pattern for the proper playing surface, even if it means buying multiple pairs. If you have the budget because of that, that's really how it should be. Again, I just don't recommend wearing firm ground on artificial grass on firm ground, or soft ground on any other type of playing surface that isn't soft ground. It's just that simple. So again, I hope this video helped you out, guys. I'll leave a comment down below if you do have any more questions, and if you did enjoy today's video, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information down below in the description. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.